Chapter 91. The Summoning of Dawn. That morning, the first rays of dawn illuminated the land, dispelling the remnants of war. The gods gathered at the base of the hill. Auren, holding the eternal torch, stood before them, his eyes filled with resolve. "You have fought valiantly," he said, his voice resonating. "But we have a greater mission, to destroy darkness completely, so it can never return." Elandra stood beside him, gripping the ancient light torch tightly. "We won't stop. This world is worth protecting." As they marched forward, the sky turned gray, and the air grew heavy. A sense of unease settled over them. From the distance, a massive shadowy army emerged, led by Malgrath, whose face was twisted with triumph. "Welcome back, gods," he said in a low, menacing voice, each word cutting like a dagger. "Do you think light can triumph over darkness? Witness your own destruction." Malgrath wasted no time. Raising his hand, he summoned a vortex of darkness that engulfed everything. Auren immediately activated the summoning of dawn, unleashing a blinding light to counter the shadows. "Stay focused! I'll handle Malgrath!" Auren shouted. Zephyra leapt into action, her delicate wings creating powerful gusts of wind that slowed the shadow army's advance. Meanwhile, Ignis swung his flaming sword, each slash tearing through the darkness and igniting brilliant flames amidst the battlefield. "I won't let this darkness consume the world," Ignis roared, his fiery aura blazing furiously. At the rear, Elandra struggled to activate the ancient light torch. Sweat dripped down her face as she clenched it tightly. "This torch, it's not strong enough," she whispered, her voice trembling. Sensing the urgency, Solian stepped forward. Raising the eternal hourglass, he created a temporary time suspension, giving the gods a moment to regroup. "This won't last long. You must combine your powers," he said, his tone serious yet determined. Solara knelt on the ground, her hands glowing with green light as she summoned the strength of nature. Now, massive vines erupted from the earth, entangling the shadow army and halting their advance. "Nature will never bow to darkness," Solara cried. Simultaneously, Nyxara cast Lullaby of Illusions, conjuring massive illusions to disorient the shadow army. "We can do this, but we need more time," she said. As the shadow army began to falter, Malgrath roared and launched a devastating direct attack. Shadows surged toward the gods like a tidal wave. Ignis stepped forward, summoning all his remaining strength to unleash the firestorm. Crimson flames erupted into a massive inferno, incinerating the shadow army and carving a path forward. "Go now! Don't look back!" Ignis shouted, his voice filled with resolve. Zephyra tried to stop him. "You don't have to do this. We can fight together." Ignis smiled, his eyes glowing with determination. "This fire is my life. If it must burn out to protect this world, so be it." The final flames of Ignis burned brighter than ever, lighting up the sky. As the darkness dissipated, his body merged with the light, leaving behind a heart-wrenching silence. As the gods pressed toward the heart of the shadow stronghold, Malgrath reappeared, this time in a new form. His body shimmered with an eerie glow, a fusion of reflective light and darkness. He cast a spell that distorted time, throwing the gods into chaos. Solian struggled to stabilize the timeline. Raising the eternal hourglass, he emitted waves of stabilizing energy. The glowing sand inside moved rhythmically, creating a field of temporal balance around the group. "I can't hold this for long. You must end this now," Solian said, his exhaustion evident. As the gods reached the center of the stronghold, they noticed faintly glowing ancient symbols etched into the walls. Elandra approached them, her eyes scanning the inscriptions intently. "This isn't the end. These symbols foretell a greater awakening." Auren stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the shrouded darkness ahead. "Malgrath is just the tip of the iceberg. We must prepare for an even fiercer battle." Each member of the group nodded, their eyes filled with determination. They understood that this fight was about more than just light and darkness. It was about faith, hope, and unity. Chapter 92. The Mystery of the Final Fragment. The gods ventured deeper into the heart of the dark fortress. The surrounding air was cold, shrouded in a dense black mist. Solian raised the eternal hourglass, its silver glow faintly piercing the oppressive darkness. "There's something ahead," Solian said, his eyes fixed on the haze. "I can sense the energy of the final fragment." Nyxara stepped forward, her pale violet eyes gleaming in the shadows. "The darkness here is different, deeper, more insidious. It's concealing something important." As they advanced, a faint light from the fragment flickered in the distance, only to be quickly swallowed by the thick shadows. "We must break through this darkness," Nyxara said, her voice steady yet determined. As the gods approached the fragment, the surrounding shadows began to shift. From within the mist, Umbra, the demon of darkness, emerged. His form was ever-changing, a mass of shifting shadows with piercing white eyes. "Do you think you can claim this fragment?" Umbra's voice echoed from all directions. "This is my domain. Your light will never reach it." With a sweeping motion, Umbra unleashed massive tendrils of darkness toward the gods. Auren raised the eternal torch, its light flaring brightly, but it wasn't enough to repel the encroaching shadows. "I need more time to summon stronger light," Auren shouted, his eyes blazing like the sun. "Hold him off!" Amidst the chaos of battle, Elandra approached a stone wall etched with ancient runes. The inscriptions glowed faintly, as if guiding her. Placing her hand on the wall, she concentrated on deciphering the script. "This is how we activate the fragment," she whispered, her eyes lighting up. "We need to combine light and darkness to unlock its power." Nyxara turned toward her. "Light and darkness? Are you sure?" Elandra nodded. "We can't win relying on light alone. Darkness is part of the balance." While the gods battled Umbra, Solara noticed a wounded forest guardian lying near the fragment. Ikuri, a mythical unicorn, once a protector of nature, now corrupted by darkness. "You once protected this world. Now it's time for me to restore your life," Solara said softly. Kneeling beside the unicorn, her hands glowed with green energy, channeling the essence of nature into the creature. Slowly, the wounds healed, and the darkness receded, replaced by a pure, green radiance. The unicorn stood, its eyes filled with gratitude. With a roar, it unleashed a wave of energy that pushed back the shadows, buying the gods precious time to reach the fragment. Just as the gods neared the fragment, a surge of power erupted, forcing them back. Malgrath appeared, standing atop a high platform, his golden eyes gleaming with cunning. You think you've won?" he sneered, his voice echoing like a curse. "This fragment will not help you seal the darkness. I will twist it into a tool to destroy natural order and create a new world, Fithanin, where light and darkness bow to me." Raising his hand, Malgrath channeled immense energy from the fragment, directing it toward the gods. Auren and Nyxara combined their powers, forming a barrier of light and shadow to deflect the attack. "You'll never achieve that, Malgrath!" Auren shouted. The battle reached its climax, as the gods united to face Malgrath and Umbra. Solien wielded the power of time to slow their enemies' attacks, while Zephyra summoned a storm of wind infused with light to weaken the surrounding darkness. Elandra and Nyxara flanked the fragment, channeling their powers to activate it. Their combined energy, light and darkness intertwined, created a powerful silver current that surged through the area. Malgrath roared in fury as the energy overwhelmed him, the darkness around him dissolving. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over," he snarled, before vanishing into a cloud of black smoke, leaving an unsettling silence in his wake. The gods reclaimed the final fragment, but their exhaustion was evident. Auren rose, his gaze heavy with concern. "We've won this fight, but his forces remain strong. We must prepare for what lies ahead." Chapter 93. The Psychological Battle. The gods continued their journey through a dark corridor that led to a strange realm where time and space seemed distorted. Fragments of shadow floated in the air, whispering faintly in an otherworldly tone. "I don't like this place," Zephyra muttered, her wings fluttering in an attempt to dispel the creeping unease. Auren held the eternal torch high, its light flickering as if suppressed by the oppressive darkness. "Be cautious! This is Malgrath's game!" No sooner had he spoken than a low, menacing laugh echoed around them. Malgrath materialized mid-air, his golden eyes gleaming with malice. "Oh, gods of light, do you think you truly know yourselves? Let me show you what lies hidden within your minds." Malgrath unleashed his eyes of temptation, weaving vivid illusions that forced each god to confront their deepest fears. Auren found himself in a world engulfed entirely in darkness. Though he held the eternal torch, its light was feeble, unable to illuminate the path ahead. Distant cries for help echoed, tearing him between his duty and his fear of failure. Elandra was surrounded by images of people she had failed to protect. Their accusing faces materialized around her, their voices cutting into her like 1,000 blades. Nyxara faced a world where darkness had triumphed, with her as its source. She saw herself abandoned by her comrades, their eyes filled with betrayal. Solian watched as the flow of time shattered before him. Memories and futures crumbled into dust, falling around him like grains in an hourglass. He realized he was powerless to control the timeline, and everything was doomed to fade. Amid the chaos, Nyxara realized that these were mere illusions crafted by Malgrath. She shouted, "Elandra, I need you! Only the union of light and shadow can break this trap." Despite her despair, Elandra heard Nyxara's voice. She raised the torch of light, its glow intensifying as it blended with Nyxara's shadow. Together, they unleashed a silver energy that shattered the illusions enveloping the gods. "We can't do this alone, but together, we can overcome anything," Nyxara said, her eyes alight with determination. As the illusions dissipated, Auren stood motionless, his eyes heavy with sorrow. Memories of his failure to save his homeland from a catastrophic shadow flood played over and over in his mind. "I failed once. How can I ensure I won't fail again?" he asked, his voice trembling. Elandra approached him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We've all experienced failure, Auren. It's what makes us stronger. You're not fighting alone." Her words were like a guiding light, pulling Auren from the depths of his regret. He nodded, his resolve renewed. "You're right. We are not alone." As the gods regained their composure, the surrounding darkness erupted into chaos. A massive shadow army emerged, led by demonic creatures with glowing red eyes. "Malgrath won't let us leave so easily," Zephyra said, her wings beating fiercely as she conjured whirlwinds to scatter the advancing horde. Ignis stood at the forefront, wielding his flaming sword. "If he wants a fight, I'll show him real strength." The battle erupted in fury. Auren led the charge, the light of his torch cutting through the shadow creatures, while Solara summoned nature to shield the group. Giant vines erupted from the ground, ensnaring the enemy and creating openings for counterattacks. After a fierce and exhausting battle, the gods managed to push back the shadow army. The space around them gradually fell silent, though they all knew this was only a small victory in a much larger war. Auren looked at his comrades, his voice strong and resolute. "We've broken through the illusions, but this won't be the last time. Malgrath is still powerful, and he won't stop." Solian stepped forward, placing his hand on the hourglass. "We must stabilize the timeline to prevent the world from descending into chaos." The others nodded, their eyes reflecting an unprecedented unity. They understood that only through their combined strength could they face the greater challenges ahead. Chapter 94: The Ultimate Form. The silence lingered for only a moment before a colossal surge of energy erupted from the depths of darkness, spreading across every corner of the battlefield. Malgrath emerged, his body transformed into a towering entity of intertwined light and shadow. His form embodied all the demons he had absorbed, and his golden eyes glowed like twin suns. "This is my ultimate power," he roared, his voice shaking the very fabric of space. "Feel the weight of your helplessness." The gods stood frozen before Malgrath's new form. Auren tightened his grip on the eternal torch, his eyes brimming with resolve. "Away. We cannot retreat. Now is the time to combine our strength." Auren quickly devised a strategy. "Malgrath is too strong for us to face individually. We must attack simultaneously from all sides." Elandra would use the ancient light torch to seal his power. Ignis and Zephyra would combine their attacks to weaken the shadow army. Solian would slow time to reduce Malgrath's dominance. Solara would shield the team with her nature magic, ensuring their safety. As the others dispersed, Elandra advanced toward the center of the battlefield. Raising the ancient light torch high, she unleashed its radiant light, creating a glowing energy field around Malgrath. Malgrath roared, sensing his power being constrained. "Do you think your feeble light can contain me?" "It's not just my light, it's the light of all of us," Elandra shouted, channeling every ounce of her strength into the torch. Its light grew even brighter, piercing through the darkness surrounding Malgrath. Elsewhere, Ignis and Zephyra joined forces to deliver a devastating attack. Ignis summoned Wrath of the Fire God, his flames erupting fiercely and engulfing the battlefield. At the same time, Zephyra conjured a powerful storm, her whirlwinds merging with the fire to create an unstoppable inferno. "This is the strength of fire and wind!" Ignis bellowed, his fiery gaze unwavering. The firestorm swept through the shadow army, incinerating hordes of creatures and clearing a path for the gods. Zephyra smiled, her wings glowing faintly. "Your flames are stronger than I thought, Ignis." As the battle raged on, Solian noticed the time around them beginning to distort. Raising the eternal hourglass, he struggled to stabilize the flow of time. However, Malgrath's overwhelming power quickly drained his divine energy. "I can't hold this much longer," Solian murmured, sweat dripping down his face. Sensing his struggle, Solara approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, Solian. Let nature lend you its strength." Vines sprouted from the ground, wrapping around the hourglass and infusing it with natural energy. Time steadied, granting the gods a critical window to continue their assault. Realizing the gods were gaining ground, Malgrath unleashed a massive counterattack. Hundreds of beams of light and darkness erupted from his body, targeting the gods with unrelenting force. Auren stepped forward, shielding his allies with the light of the eternal torch. However, Malgrath's attack was too powerful, scattering the gods and leaving many injured. "We can't hold out much longer," Zephyra cried, her injured wings preventing her from flying. Despite her exhaustion, Elandra pushed herself to her feet, her eyes burning with determination. "We can't stop now. The world needs us." The gods regrouped, their collective light intensifying as they formed a unified energy field. Even in the face of danger, they understood that one final push could end the battle. All eyes turned to Auren, their leader in the fight against darkness. "This is it," Auren said, his voice resolute and commanding. "It's time to finish this once and for all. Prepare for the final battle." As the gods readied themselves, their light burned brighter than ever, standing in stark contrast to the overwhelming darkness that awaited them. With unity and unwavering resolve, they moved forward, knowing that the fate of the world hung on their victory. Chapter 95. The Turning Point of Light. Amid the chaotic clash of light and darkness, Ignis stood before the gods, his fiery gaze unwavering. "I will clear the path," he declared, his voice resolute. "My flames will burn away all darkness blocking our way." Auren met his gaze, his expression both concerned and determined. "You know this might cost you all your divine power." Ignis gripped his flaming sword tightly, his eyes blazing. If sacrifice is what it takes to give this world a chance, I am ready." Stepping forward, Ignis summoned all his strength. Wrath of the Fire God, his most powerful attack, erupted in a fiery inferno, spreading like a massive firestorm. The flames not only obliterated the enemy ranks, but also carved a direct path toward the heart of the dark fortress. "Go now! Don't let my sacrifice be in vain!" Ignis roared, his voice echoing through the battlefield. Zephyra, though pained by his decision, led the gods forward. Her wings beat fiercely, conjuring gusts of wind to fuel Ignis's flames and weaken the remaining shadow forces. "Your fire lights our way," she whispered. As the gods moved through the path Ignis had created, the shadows continued their relentless assault. Zephyra used her wind magic to shield her allies with a protective barrier. "Keep going, I'll hold them back," she shouted, her glowing wings generating powerful whirlwinds that swept away hordes of shadow creatures. Solara glanced at Zephyra, tears welling in her eyes. "You've given so much already, don't let yourself fall." "I won't stop until it's over," Zephyra replied, her voice filled with unwavering determination. As the gods drew closer to the core, Solian detected a distortion in the flow of time around them. Raising the eternal hourglass, its silver light illuminated the area. "There's a temporal rift ahead," Solian said, his tone calm but urgent. "If we can use it, the sealing ritual will succeed." Auren nodded firmly. "We'll create the opportunity for you. Do what you must." Upon reaching the central chamber, ancient traps activated. Interwoven beams of light and darkness formed spinning blades of energy, threatening their every step. Elandra stepped forward, raising the ancient torch high. Its light illuminated the way, dissolving the traps one by one. "This torch is our guiding light," she said, her voice brimming with strength. "Follow me." The gods moved cautiously, inching past each trap under Elandra's guidance. However, every step drained her strength, and the torch's glow began to fade. As the group reached the core of the fortress, a massive wave of dark energy surged toward them. Solara knelt, her glowing hands summoning the power of nature to form a protective barrier around the team. "Nature will never yield to darkness," she said, her voice trembling with exhaustion. Giant vines erupted from the ground, weaving into a sturdy shield. Solian looked at Solara, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You've done well. Now it's time for us to press on." As the gods entered the core, Malgrath appeared, his form radiating a volatile blend of light and shadow. He unleashed a full-force attack, a colossal energy wave sweeping through everything in its path.
Auren charged forward, wielding the eternal torch to block the assault.
Yet, Malgrath's power was overwhelming, forcing the gods to retreat.
Despite her exhaustion, Elandra rose, lifting the ancient torch once more.
"We cannot let him win," she shouted, her eyes blazing. "It all ends here." Faced with Malgrath's immense power, the gods stood at a crossroads. All eyes turned to Auren, their unwavering leader, who had guided them through every challenge. He tightened his grip on the torch, his gaze resolute. "This is the decisive moment. We must finish this," he said, his voice resonating through the chamber. As the gods prepared for the ultimate confrontation, the flickering light of the torches seemed to merge, with the faint hope still burning in their hearts. Together, they charged toward destiny, ready to end the darkness once and for all. Chapter 96. The Sealing Ritual. The Temple of Light was enveloped in a profound silence, not one of peace, but of anticipation. Each of the gods, from Auren to Solara to Ignis, felt the invisible weight of the moment. They knew this was the final battle, a decisive act to determine the fate of the world. Solian stood before the central altar, where the eternal torch blazed with unyielding brilliance. His voice rang out, steady and authoritative. "The darkness is closing in. Time is short. Each of us has a vital role to play. Remember, only through perfect unity will the ritual succeed." Auren's gaze swept across the room, stopping on each of his comrades. The burden on his shoulders was immense, but he understood that unity was their only chance. "I trust in all of you. Darkness cannot prevail if we give it everything we've got." As Solian began chanting the incantation to initiate the sealing ritual, a dense black fog suddenly engulfed the temple. From the distance, Malgrath emerged, his towering form and sinister face becoming clearer through the haze. "Do you truly think you can seal me?" Malgrath's gravelly voice resonated, each word dripping with dread. "Your light is but a flickering candle before the storm." Auren stepped forward, his eyes blazing with unwavering faith. Raising the eternal torch high, its golden light sliced through a portion of the darkness surrounding Malgrath. "You will never overcome the light, Malgrath," Auren declared. Malgrath laughed, a sharp, cutting sound that shook the god's resolve. "Then I will make you prove it." Without hesitation, Malgrath unleashed swirling tendrils of darkness that lashed toward Auren like massive whips. Auren countered with Summon of Dawn, a radiant surge of light that repelled the initial attack. Their opposing powers clashed repeatedly, creating thunderous explosions that shook the temple. Above them, the sky seemed torn in two, one half illuminated by radiant light, the other consumed by impenetrable darkness. Seizing a moment of vulnerability, Malgrath launched razor-sharp blades of shadow. Auren evaded most of them, but one struck his arm, leaving a charred wound. "You're better than I expected," Malgrath sneered. Auren gritted his teeth, his body glowing with renewed light that healed the wound instantly. "You will never make me back down." Inside the temple, Solara knelt on the ground, channeling her power into the earth. Mighty vines sprouted, fortifying the temple structure and shielding the ritual from Malgrath's encroaching darkness. But Malgrath summoned shadow creatures, beasts bristling with spikes and glowing red eyes, that tore through Solara's defenses. Though weary, Solara invoked the breath of the forest, releasing a green mist that weakened the creatures. Yet each spell drained her strength further. Ignis rushed to her side, unleashing flaming tempest to incinerate the remaining beasts. "You can't do this alone, Solara." "Nature needs me," Solara panted, sweat streaming down her pale face. "I won't let darkness destroy everything." At the center of the ritual, Elandra approached the ancient altar, where the light of the eternal torch intertwined with the glow of the ancient torch. Chanting a sacred spell, her words carried a powerful resonance, channeling purifying light into the heart of the darkness. Sensing the threat, the surrounding shadows surged like a tidal wave, attempting to engulf her. But the ancient torch's light grew stronger, pushing back each assault. "You cannot break it," Elandra proclaimed, her eyes glowing with resolve. And Malgrath roared and conjured a vortex of shadow to strike her down, but before he could land a blow, Zephyra intervened. Summoning the Gale of Freedom, she deflected the attack. "We won't let you sabotage this ritual," Zephyra shouted. As the ritual reached its peak, Solian sensed a shift. He glanced at the eternal hourglass in his hand, its sands beginning to reverse, a sign of time's final turn. "My time has come," Solian said softly, his gaze calm yet resolute. Before anyone could react, Solian stepped into the central beam of light. The eternal hourglass erupted in brilliance, its radiance spreading across the temple and banishing every trace of shadow.
"No!"
Auren cried, rushing forward. But the light consumed everything before he could reach Solian. When the glow subsided, Solian was gone. The sealing ritual had succeeded, and the darkness was banished forever. Silence filled the temple. The gods stood motionless, their hearts heavy with grief. Solian's absence left an irreplaceable void. "He sacrificed himself for all of us," Elandra said, her voice trembling.
Auren placed his hand on the eternal torch, his eyes reflecting both sorrow and determination.
"Holy. Solian will never be forgotten. His sacrifice is why we must protect the peace he gave everything for." Chapter 97. The Rebirth of Peace. The gentle light of the eternal torch illuminated the cracks in the temple walls, remnants of the fierce battle. Each god stood in silence, their eyes reflecting deep thought. Auren felt the weight on his shoulders grow heavier as he reflected on Solian's sacrifice. "Solian has always been our guide. Can I truly take his place?" Auren whispered to himself, his glowing eyes dimmed with sorrow. Elandra, now entrusted with the ancient light torch, could feel its power coursing through her, yet doubt clouded her mind. "I'm not strong enough. I'm just a mortal," she thought, her hands gripping the torch tightly as its radiant glow flickered in her uncertain gaze. Solara sat on the ground, her hands trembling as she tried to summon the last of her strength to sow seeds into the parched earth. "Nature will recover," she murmured, her voice tinged with fatigue. "But will there be enough time?" The next morning, Auren convened the gods around the great council table in the temple. He began. "The darkness has been driven back, but our work is far from over. This world needs us, each of you, to rebuild what has been lost." Solara spoke first, her voice heavy with grief. "The forests are devastated. I can restore them, but my strength isn't what it used to be. Without help." She paused, glancing around the room. Ignis placed his hand on the table, a gentle warmth radiating from his flames. "I'll assist you, Solara. Fire doesn't just destroy, it also renews. We'll do this together." Zephyra nodded softly, her wings shimmering as they fluttered. "My winds will carry your seeds far and wide, to lands I once protected. No corner will be forgotten." Thalios, usually silent, spoke with unexpected resolve.
"The seas have been poisoned by darkness, but I'll purify them.
The mythical sea creatures need time to heal, and I'll ensure that happens." Auren listened intently, his gaze filled with gratitude. "Good, but let's not forget. Our mission isn't just about restoration. Solian's sacrifice reminds us of the power of unity. We must safeguard peace for future generations." Solara and Ignis began their work in the most devastated forest. The ground was barren, and the trees were nothing more than charred stumps. Solara knelt, placing her hands on the soil. A soft green glow spread from her fingertips as small vines began to sprout. After hours of effort, she collapsed from exhaustion. Ignis quickly caught her. "You can't do this alone. Let me help." Raising his fiery sword, Ignis unleashed a warm flame that enveloped the area. His fire didn't destroy. It infused the earth with energy, breathing life into the new growth. Solara looked up at him, her eyes filled with awe. "Thank you, Ignis. I never thought fire could save a forest." On a vast plain where the light was weakest, Zephyra and Elandra worked together to create a protective barrier. Zephyra unleashed the whirlwind of freedom, guiding Elandra's light into every shadowy corner. "I can feel the wind and light merging," Elandra said, astonished. "This is a power I never knew existed." Zephyra smiled, her wings gleaming in the sunlight. "Sometimes, harmony is the key. You've done well, goddess of light." One day, as the gods gathered in the temple, a strange light appeared at its center. A hidden passageway opened, leading to an ancient shrine they had never seen before. Inside, they discovered a relief of Solian holding the eternal hourglass. An inscription on the wall read, quote, "Time flows unceasingly, but your actions today will shape the future. Protect peace, for it is your eternal duty." The words left the group in silence. Auren broke it, his voice steady yet reverent. "Even in absence, Solian continues to guide us." A brilliant sunrise cast its light across the world. Mythical creatures began to re-emerge. Lush forests stretched across the land, and the seas shimmered with purity once more. Elandra stood atop the temple, holding the light torch, which now burned with unmatched brilliance.
"We've done it!
This is a new beginning, and we will never allow darkness to return." Auren nodded, his eyes glowing with pride. Solian would be proud of us. Once again, the world was filled with light and hope, a testament to the resilience and unity of its protectors. Chapter 98. The Restoration of Light. Elandra stood in the grand hall of the Temple of Light, where the glow from the ancient torch reflected off the radiant golden walls. Her violet eyes sparkled with determination, though they could not hide the weight of responsibility. "The world has been reborn, but the scars left by darkness will not heal easily," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber. "We are not just gods, we are protectors. This is our duty, and it belongs to all of us." Auren nodded, the light from the eternal torch in his hand merging with Elandra's radiance. "You're right, your light is more than power. It is the hope for every living being. We will follow your plan."
The gods listened attentively as Elandra laid out their tasks.
She divided the work, assigning each god roles suited to their abilities. This coordination not only ensured swift restoration, but also reaffirmed the unity among the gods. Solara and Ignis ventured into a forest devastated by darkness. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur, and charred tree stumps stood forlornly on barren soil. Lauf. Placing her hand on a lifeless tree stump, Solara closed her eyes and felt the faint pulse of nature's lingering essence. There is still life here, though it's only a flicker of hope," she said, her eyes gleaming with a soft light.
Ignis stood beside her, his flaming sword glowing gently.
"My fire can cleanse this land, but it needs your touch to nurture life anew."
Solara nodded.
She invoked the breath of the forest, releasing a thin mist that spread across the area. Tiny green shoots sprouted from the ground, clinging to the remaining roots, as if nature grasped the hand of salvation. Ignis summoned warm flames that did not destroy but burned away the remnants of darkness. Together, fire and nature created a wondrous sight, a forest beginning its slow but steady rebirth. In the eastern lands, where the light remained faint after the battle, Zephyra and Elandra worked together to forge a new protective barrier. Zephyra used her wind powers to sweep away lingering shadows, while Elandra channeled light into the dim corners. "This barrier won't just protect the land, it will create a sanctuary where light and wind unite," Zephyra said, her wings stirring in a gentle breeze. Elandra smiled softly, raising the ancient torch. The light from the torch blended with the winds, forming shimmering rings of protection around the region. Wind and light will make this a place no darkness can touch.
For days they labored to complete the barrier, crafting an invisible yet formidable shield. Zephyra maintained the flow with her winds of freedom, while Elandra fortified it with her light magic.
At the vast ocean, Thalios stood on the deck of a great ship, gazing at the green-tinged waters polluted by darkness. Closing his eyes, he focused all his energy on the wrath of the sea. A massive wave surged forth, sweeping away the impurities and leaving behind crystal-clear waters. "The sea always renews itself, but this time it needs our help," Thalios said, his gaze as deep as the ocean. He summoned mythical sea creatures, giant fish, and glowing coral reefs, to rejuvenate the underwater ecosystems. Gentle rains, guided by Zephyra's winds, fell over the ocean, infusing it with freshness and life. One day, as the gods gathered at the Temple of Light, after completing their tasks, a strange phenomenon occurred. From Solian's eternal hourglass, a silver light emerged, leading them to a hidden time portal within the temple.
They entered an ancient shrine where time seemed to stand still. At the center, a vision of Solian appeared, his eyes radiant and his voice echoing. "Time has witnessed everything. You have done well, but your mission is not over. Remember, light and darkness are not merely opposites, they are part of a greater balance. Protect the world, and protect this balance." His words served as a profound reminder, leaving the gods in solemn silence. Auren placed his hand on the eternal torch and murmured, "Solian remains with us, through time and light." Quote, with their work nearly complete, the gods reunited at the Temple of Light to reflect on their achievements. Forests had been reborn, the oceans purified, and light now shone in every corner. "This is not just a victory, it's a promise," Elandra said, her voice strong.
"We will not allow darkness to return." The gods shared a collective nod of agreement,
the light from the eternal torch illuminating their faces. A new era had begun, not just of light, but of unity and harmony among all beings.
Chapter 99. Ancient Mysteries. On a quiet night in the Temple of Light, a silver glow from the eternal hourglass suddenly illuminated the space. The light didn't spread as it usually did, but instead converged, forming a mysterious portal that led to a dimly lit corridor.
"What is this?"
Elandra asked, her eyes fixed on the portal. "It's an invitation from Solien. We should follow it," Auren said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The gods stepped through the portal, into a realm of uncertainty. Inside was an ancient temple, where time seemed to stand still. At the center of the space, a faint image of Solien appeared, his eyes glowing like the sands of the eternal hourglass.
"Greetings, my friends," Solien's voice echoed.
"Time is a circle, and you now stand at its intersection."
Solien began recounting the truth about the demons. The demons were not always creatures of darkness. They were once part of the universe's balance. But greed and selfishness among some gods shattered the harmony, transforming these beings into pure shadow. The revelation stunned the group. Zephyra spoke up. "So we created our own enemies?" "Not you alone," Solien replied, "but the generations of gods before you. The key now is to prevent history from repeating itself. Protect the balance between light and darkness." Before fading away, Solien pointed to an altar where a glowing orb hovered. "This time, orb contains vital clues to achieving eternal harmony. Use it wisely."
After leaving the Temple of Time, Elandra grew contemplative. Holding the time orb in her hands, she felt a strange, flowing energy within it. "Balance is not about light defeating darkness," she said, her eyes gleaming with newfound clarity. "It's about both coexisting without overpowering one another." Auren nodded in agreement. "We've focused too much on eradicating darkness, forgetting it's part of nature too. You're right, Elandra. You're the one best suited to guide us forward."
Elandra decided to convene a council at the Temple of Light, summoning all the gods and mythical creatures. In her address, she emphasized the importance of maintaining equilibrium. "We will not allow darkness to resurge, but neither will we destroy it completely. Instead, we must create a balanced ecosystem where everything has its place."
Zephyra embarked on a journey to find a new land where the mythical winds were said to exist. According to legend, these winds brought life and maintained the world's energy balance. Her quest led her to a massive canyon where powerful gales howled endlessly. At the canyon's heart stood an ancient stone pillar etched with mysterious symbols.
Placing her hand on the pillar, Zephyra felt the wind's strength flow into her. "The mythical winds are still here, waiting for someone to awaken them," she whispered. After days of meditation, Zephyra forged a connection with the winds, using them to create powerful air currents that carried energy to distant lands. Her winds not only brought hope, but also shielded life from the encroaching darkness.
Thalios spent time in the ocean, observing marine life as it recovered from the recent war. However, he noticed an unsettling phenomenon. The ocean currents had stopped circulating, leaving some areas stagnant.
"The ocean is the lifeblood of the world," he murmured. "If its flow stops, so does life." Using his trident, Thalios cast a powerful spell to restore the currents. Mythical sea creatures, glowing whales and sea dragons, emerged to assist him, ensuring the currents would remain steady. "The ocean is not just a habitat," he told the gods upon his return. "It's the heartbeat of the world. We must never forget that."
The time orb left behind by Solien led the gods to a mysterious land where they discovered strange fragments. Each fragment glowed with a unique hue, as if containing the universe's fundamental energies.
"These are the fragments of creation," Auren realized.
"If we can piece them together, we may forge a timeless realm where light and darkness coexist in harmony." The gods agreed to devote themselves to studying and gathering the remaining fragments. As the chapter closed, the gods gathered once more, their eyes shining with resolve. "We've found a new purpose," Elandra said, raising the time orb now. "Not just to protect the world, but to perfect its harmony." Under the light of the eternal torch, the gods stepped forward, heading toward a new horizon where ancient mysteries awaited their discovery. Welcome to Fantasy Realms. Enjoy the story, and thank you for your support. Chapter 100. The Land of Harmony. Under Elandra's leadership, the areas devastated by darkness began to heal. Hills once scorched to ash now brimmed with tender green shoots, rejuvenated by the purifying light of the ancient torch she carried. Alondra was more than just a leader, she was a beacon of hope. She traversed the lands, meeting mythical creatures who had fled the shadow's grasp. With a gentle yet firm voice, she urged them to join the effort to rebuild. "We all share the responsibility of protecting this world," she told a herd of radiant unicorns, her sincere gaze meeting theirs. "Light isn't just my strength, it's yours too. Together, we will rebuild everything." As unity grew, Alondra used the light torch to restore lost villages and dispel the lingering shadows across the land. Each time its light shone, warmth and reassurance filled her heart. In the southern forested mountains, Solara knelt before an ancient, towering tree, the soul of nature. Once a symbol of life, the tree now stood barren, its bark cracked and its branches lifeless. "Nature has suffered enough," Solara whispered, placing her hands on the tree's trunk. "I vow to be the bridge between this world and you, to ensure no further destruction will come." Her prayer invoked a sacred pact. A green light emanated from Solara, merging with the energy of the tree and spreading in waves throughout the forest. Every creature, from the tiniest woodland deer to the mighty earth dragons, felt the surge of life. "From now on," Solara declared, "nature and its inhabitants will live in harmony. This is my promise to the soul of the forest." Standing atop a high mountain where the winds howled strongest, Zephyra raised her hands and called upon the power of the wind to deliver a message of peace. Winds imbued with light streamed from her wings, spreading across the skies. In distant lands, mythical creatures, fiery dragons, phoenixes, and glowing bats, felt the warm breeze. "My wind is more than breath," Zephyra murmured, closing her eyes. "It is hope, a call for unity. Let it guide you." Her message inspired mythical beings to leave their sanctuaries and join the world's recovery. Gentle whirlwinds carried seeds and light to the most remote corners, ensuring no place was left untouched. Alondra, with Auren and Ignis's help, initiated the construction of a lighthouse of light at the world's center. This structure would not only symbolize hope, but also serve as a hub of energy to prevent darkness from returning. The project spanned weeks, with gods and mythical creatures working side by side. Ignis used the eternal flame to forge massive stone blocks, forming a sturdy foundation. Zephyra controlled the winds to transport materials from distant lands. When the lighthouse was complete, Alondra raised the light torch and activated it. A powerful beam shot skyward, a protective signal illuminating the entire world. "This lighthouse stands as proof of our strength and determination," Alondra said, her voice resounding. "The eternal light will never fade." Quote, "One quiet evening in the Temple of Light, the gods discovered an ancient book on Solian's altar. Its cover shimmered with interwoven light and shadow, forming the image of a moving hourglass. Alondra opened the book, revealing glowing golden text. Time is a cycle, but your will can break it. Every action, every decision, is a part of the balance. Use your wisdom to guide the future." The text continued, offering profound knowledge about maintaining harmony between light and darkness. This book became a priceless guide for the gods, helping them understand their purpose more deeply. With their work nearing completion, the world began to return to its original splendor. Verdant forests stretched endlessly, oceans sparkled with purity, and the skies were free of dark clouds. The gods gathered atop the lighthouse of light, gazing down at the rejuvenated land. The light torch's glow mingled with the elements of wind, fire, and water, creating a magnificent display. "This isn't just an ending," Alondra said, her eyes alight with hope. "It's a beginning. We will continue to protect this world for the sake of harmony." As a radiant sunrise spread across the land, it marked the start of a new era of light, wind, and unity.